Okay, so I want to go ahead and make all this even numbers, and I was counting up the videos that we have done, which there was 2 for Woman's World, which I did not plan on doing. One about the 24th, one about Reader's Digest, and one for First Magazine. That makes 5 videos. In order to make 6 videos, I have to review Make Mine a Cowboy, the Meadow Valley novel, and it's by the author A.J. Pine. Now, this particular version, which is a Western romance, my favorite genre, has got a bonus novel, which I feel like I've read before, but I'm going to reread it anyway because it's that good. Let me go ahead, though, and review Make Mine a Cowboy by A.J. Pine. We're going to read the back of it, then I'm going to read the parts that I want to share with you that I marked, and then, of course, give you the rating. Can he prove that their fake relationship is worth a real shot? Dr. Charlotte North has no time for a player, not even as one as tempting as Ben Callahan. Besides, Charlotte is the only in Meadow Valley for a few months to help her grandmother. After that, it's back to New York and her career she loves. But when her Gram starts to meddle in her personal life, Charlotte knows just the man to help her out. Ben's the perfect no-strings boyfriend until Charlotte discovers that beneath that rugged, charming exterior lies a sweet and big-hearted cowboy. Ben Callahan is tired of people assuming that he's an immature playboy, so when the smart and sexy Charlotte asks him to be her pretend boyfriend, he jumps at that chance to show everyone that he has changed his ways. Though he and Charlotte are calling their relationship fake, Ben's heart says otherwise. 2 months with Charlotte isn't nearly enough. Will Ben be able to prove that he's worthy of her real before their time together is up, or will she leave Meadow Valley and him forever? And it says here, the sweet, sexy romance is a heartwarming must-read by Jennifer Ryan, New York Times bestselling author on Second Chance Cowboy. Okay, I'm going to read to you the little insert that's as you open the flap. He placed the hand on the small of her back. It was nothing more than a light touch, a small gesture from one friend to another, yet she held her breath until they reached the curb on the other side of the street. He threaded his fingers through hers as they approached the steps that led into the inn's front porch. In case we have an audience, he whispered when she stared right down at their interlaced hands. Right, she said, as her heart, the heat coursing through her veins. Good move. But what would his next move be? Would there be a next move? How should she react if there was? There she spotted Pearl through the window in the door and decided someone has to make a move soon or risk blowing their cover. Grand, she whispered, shouting, nodding her head in the same direction. She's right inside. We should play this for the whole goodbye part up, you know, for her sake. And maybe for mine, she's thinking. Ben raised a brow. Are you suggesting a kiss goodnight, Doc? She bit her lip and then smiled nervously. Would you, be open to such a thing? Actually, he said, if this had been a real date, I would have had the good night kiss all planned out. Would you like to hear how it would have gone? Now, if that didn't wet your whistle, you don't have any pulse in your body. But we're going to move forward here. They show the praise for her, the A.J. Pine, for this novel. But the pages I wish to share with you are on page, let's see here, I've got it marked, 249. We're going to start there. Dinner was fantastic as always, Pearl, Delaney said, scraping the last bite of her red-skinned garlic mashed potato from her plate and closing her eyes in what looked like ecstasy as she licked her fork clean. They all sat around the table at the inn's private dining room, and the one used only for small events and the family dinners like this one. Charlotte's heart swelled as she glanced at everyone who made the past 7 weeks better than ever she could have imagined. Sam and Delaney, Ivy and Carter, Casey and Chief Burnett, and her grandmother sat beside her and Ben. Thank you, sweetheart, Pearl said Delaney, taking a sip of her red wine. Sam laughed. I already got an earful from Louise for eating off the grounds tonight, especially when I told him it was early holiday dinner due to Charlotte leaving. I wanted a detailed menu breakdown for what Pearl serves for a holiday meal. Whatever your favorite dish is, I'll top it, Sam said, quoting his talented yet competitive chef. Potatoes, Delaney said, stealing a forkful from Sam's plate. Hey there, he said, that's theft. Delaney laughed, and she stole some more. Charlotte drew a shaky breath. She wasn't the one for speeches or sentimentality, but she felt like something ought to be said. She'd fallen so much more than she had for Ben Callahan. She'd fallen for all of them, Delaney, Ivy, Casey, Sam, and Colt. Having Carter here was beyond amazing. And Gran, who had always been the most special person in her life. It was like she was leaving Oz to go back to Kansas, her real home, only instead of waking from her dream to find her loved ones were still there. She was still going to be alone. Thank you all for coming, she stated. I'm not really great at sharing how I feel, but I want you to know how much your love and friendship has meant to me and Pearl. I always known that I had my grandmother, but now I feel like I have a whole family to come back to the next time I visit. She was grateful for Ben sitting beside her, so she didn't have to look at him in the eye. With a forced smile, she added, and I hope Louise will forgive me for pulling you all away for the fact that I know grandmother will never divulge her recipe for mashed potatoes, which means there'll be no way that he'll ever be able to top them. Pearl laughed. Even if he had the recipe, he wouldn't be able to top me, not with that attitude. Good food, and beatable food, comes from the heart. It's the same with anything you do, whether it's riding horses, rescuing animals, tending to sick children, or trying to pull the wool over your grandmother's eyes. If you put your whole heart into it, you can't fail. She gave her granddaughter a pointed look, and Charlotte's breath caught in her throat. She could feel Ben looking at her, but she didn't dare give herself away by looking back, even though she was pretty sure their deception had already been found out. Laying it on the little thick, aren't you, Gran? She asked with a nervous laugh. Pearl shrugged. Honey, I'm your grandmother, and I simply want the best for you, which means your happiness. And if it means laying it on a little thick at my secret recipe mashed potatoes to make you see what you need to see, then so be it. Charlotte opened her mouth to say who knows what, but nothing came out. You know, I feel like that should be a toast, Pearl said, holding up her glass. So how about it, to laying it on thick and seeing what needs to be seen? Soft laughter and mumbling surrounded the table, but everybody raised their glass, so Charlotte had no choice but to follow in kind. To laying it on thick and seeing what needs to be seen, everyone else said. Charlotte downed her whole glass without even coming up for a breath. Now, who wants to be also my unbeatable apple crisp? Pearl asked with a wink, and Charlotte knew Sam and Ben would drive Louise crazy with details of her grandmother's fabulous feast, while over-the-top toast would set like an anchor in her belly for the rest of the night. When the last of the dishes had been washed and dried, and Charlotte had hugged out too many times to count, Pearl cornered her before she could make it out of the kitchen. Did you really think I didn't know? Her grandmother asked, her brows raised. Charlotte could play dumb, but where would that get her? At the end of the day, she tried to lie to her grandmother, and she'd been found out. She cleared her throat. How long have you known? Pearl scoffed. That you were pretending to date Ben Callahan to get your meddling grandmother off your back, or that you've fallen in love with him and you're too damn scared to admit it? I mean, she stammered, and then she groaned. So the whole time is what you're saying. It wasn't just a question. Of course Pearl had known. She'd always known. Her grandmother narrowed her eyes. What is so wrong with admitting how you feel? She asked. This visit wasn't about my feelings, Charlotte said, exasperated. I came here to take care of you. I came here to take care of the inn. This was never about me. Pearl jutted out her chin. The town would have rallied to fill in for me. You didn't have to come back. You didn't have to lock yourself into a longer contract in New York on my account. I would have survived. Charlotte huffed out a bitter laugh. Her grandmother sounded just like Ben had the day of his father's funeral burial. Maybe I want more for you than that, she said, echoing her own words. Maybe I want to be here for you when Mom can't. Maybe I want to take care of someone I love just because I can. Is there anything wrong with that? Pearl gaze softened, and she grabbed Charlotte's hand. Oh, sweetheart, she said, don't you get it? I know you think I meddle, and maybe I even pressure you a little bit, but it's only because that's exactly what I want for you too. More than just surviving. If you're happy, truly happy with your life, and you won't regret leaving him behind, then that's all that matters to me. She gave Charlotte's hand a squeeze. Tell me you're happy with your life, she said. Charlotte was happy with her job, her apartment, her best coffee in the world, bodega. That's a long pause, Pearl said. She stated, ready to argue, but her shoulders fell. I need to get ready for bed. Pearl nodded. I think you have more than one guest to say goodbye to before you do. Then she let go of Charlotte's hand and backed out of her way. Charlotte found Ben in the lobby, quietly pacing. I thought you might have left with Sam and Delaney, she said, his back facing her. He stopped and then turned toward her. I thought maybe I should have, he said. Didn't seem like the smart thing to do, hanging around. Guess I couldn't quite bring myself to leave, not yet at least. She let out a relieved breath. Do you have an early call time tomorrow, she asked. He nodded. Breakfast duty. Sam and Delaney are headed out to Dr. Murphy's clinic to pick up a stray puppy who needs fostering, and Colt is headed back to Oak Bluff to visit his sister for Christmas and New Year's, so I can't pull any of my old stunts and not show up. She smiled. I don't think you'd do that even if you could. He smiled right back. Maybe you're right, he said. This was usually the part where she invited him back to her room or he invited her to his, but there was no usual night. But as much as she would love to wake up with him one more time, she could tell that this would make all of this so much harder than it already was. Why did you stay, Ben? She asked, as if he'd been part of a conversation she was having with herself in her head. He let out a nervous laugh, then ducked behind the registration desk and came back with a rectangular gift box wrapped in pink paper. Someone once told me that friends buy each other gifts for special occasions. So, I got you a going-away gift, he said, holding it out to her. Her breath caught in her throat, and she clasped what felt like some sort of book between her palms. You can't open it until I leave, though, he added. I don't think I could take it if you hate it. And I also don't think I could handle it if you love it. So it's my last selfish act I'm going to ask to save face while I getting good. He grinned, but then his jaw tightened. Thank you, Doc, he said softly, and brushed a kiss across her cheek for everything. She held the gift against her chest and stared at him, unable to speak for the fear of her words would melt into tears. He pressed his lips into a sad smile and nodded once, and then slipped into the inn's front door. It took her several seconds to realize he wasn't coming back, and several more to remember that the package in her hands. But when she did, she tore off the wrapping and burst into a tearful laugh, and when she saw what laid beneath. The list maker's journal, a list for every day of the year. He bought her a book of to-do lists. She opened a random page where it said, list 5 things that make you laugh. Then she flipped to another that asked her to list her 5 favorite sounds, and another that made her wonder about her favorite sandwiches, not food, but sandwiches specifically. PB&J and Brie had always topped the list, but now she's reasoning, and it was twofold. It was ridiculously delicious, but it was also what Ben had fed her on the first date, which wasn't a date, but really she guessed it sort of was. With a start, she threw open the door, thinking he might still be waiting on the other side, but there was no sign of Ben or his truck. No sign of what she held in her hands was anything more than what he said it was, a goodbye gift. She closed the book, folded a piece of paper, fell through the fluttering pages, and caught her breath before it hit the floor. She blew out a shaky breath and folded it and read. Didn't have the heart to say goodbye, Doc. Not the actual words, so I'm not going to. Because we'll see each other again someday. We have to. You still owe me one. So for now, I'll simply say until then. Until then, Doc, Ben. Well, who knew that Ben Callahan could be such a romantic? Charlotte. Charlotte knew. Or did she? I'm going to leave you wondering, does Charlotte and Ben make things work out? Is there a happily ever after in this book, like, most books that I read? Does Grandma have to convince her? Does his brother have to convince him? All of these questions can only be answered if you read the amazing book, Make Mine a Cowboy by A.J. Pine. Not only the cover, but the book gets an outstanding 100. That's a must-read on my list. So check it out. You won't regret it. Great book. I'm probably going to go ahead and read Hometown Cowboy again by Sarah Richardson because I'm already halfway in, and it is a cute story, and I probably will review it again. It'll be interesting to see if I give it the same stars as I did before. Excuse me. But thank you for tuning in. That's 6 videos, and I don't know if I'll see you the rest of this weekend, but we'll see what life holds. God bless each and every one of you. Until we meet again, stay safe, stay well.